Hello and welcome again, fellow wanderers of the web. This is a video about this project I kind of teased in a YouTube short. This, of course, is a diorama of, let me see if I can put it back together again this way. The great old one, Cthulu. So just a really interesting miniature. And what I've done is I have primed it all Chaos Black. And so you can see that these are resin miniatures. They're primed black, like I usually do. I'm not going to glue this to the base, but the base is interesting. Let me talk about that for a minute. This is an interesting, so the base is actually one of these. So just this kind of just simple plastic base, and of course, you know, this is the one I use as my palette. So, but what I've done is I have used some plastic cement, and I've cut out a piece of this. So this is actually a hobby product from a company called Amira, and they have different, like, it's like a kind of like a plasticky material, but it's got a variety of textures, and this is their sea or ocean texture. And I've never used this product, so I wanted to try it. So what I did was I cut out a piece, I used plastic cement to apply it here, waited a little while, and then I just applied, you know, glue and then primer, and then here it is. I'm not going to glue the miniature on it. I kind of want to do a sea base and then just have the miniature so I can, you know, remove it and then place it as I want to. But you can see the tops of the old one's wings, and of course you can see his head kind of coming out of the water, and of course you can see one of his massive paws there. So let's get started with this. And you know, the first thing, we're gonna do this in two different parts. First we'll do this miniature, then we'll do the base. And the base is gonna have kind of like, hopefully, this green gray deep ocean far out look to it. And so we're not going to be using I don't think any blue, but we'll use this color, dark gray, and then green gray, see where that gets us. Maybe use some other greens in there to try to bring some depth to these deep ocean waves. Okay, so we're going to start here, and I am going to remove the base, because all we're going to do to start is, the way I usually start most miniatures is just by applying a little bit of a you know, of a dry brush of a light color. And then the color I'm going to use is just something I've got a bunch of here. This is just a Liquitex heavy body acrylic. This is the unbleached titanium. You can see some of it here. So look what this paint looks like on the palette. I mean, this is kind of interesting. You know, it's not runny like hobby paint or modeling paint. It's very thick. It almost reminds me of a slightly thinner version of what Citadel, or I guess Games Workshop, calls their dry paints or their dry brush paints. And so this is a nice, less expensive option. It's kind of like a pretty good dupe for a Shabty bone, and they make a dry brush paint of that. So I'm going to use look at this, is a 3/4 inch brush. So I mean, this is not like one of those tiny hobby brushes. And so let's just start applying some of this and seeing how that model, the miniature, takes it. There you go. You can see some of the highlights there. Now, you know, in the mythology, and it was pretty evident that a lot of people are really into Cthulhu mythology based on how popular my little short was. So I felt really good to see that. But, you know, in the mythology, the creature is like a dark green, black, you know, kind of color. Described often as being sort of like kind kind of slimy in like texture and consistency, you know, of the sea, sort of, because there you go. Look at that. You can really see how the dry brushing brings out the texture of this really interesting. I don't know who makes this miniature. I usually know, but I bought these long out of print, just because I've recently become obsessed, and you can see how the dry brushing brought out that texture on the back of the wing. I've just been obsessed with Cthulhu and H.P. Lovecraft. I don't know. I just, for some reason, I got just really into it. And you know what happens, like you try to drink from a water hose. That mythology is just so rich, so deep, so beautiful, so like dark and eerie, and weirdly it's very like relevant to modern times, you know. So I can see why from the 1920s, I think 1926 Call of Cthulhu. I'm not sure about that. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong. 1926 or 1932? Something in the 1920s or 1930s. You know, H.P. Lovecraft had written a couple of kind of dark novels. I mean, dark short stories, and then of course probably the best known story of his, Call of Cthulhu. And you know, I think it's about to be the 100-year anniversary of that story, so that's exciting. And look at that. Oh man, God, dry brushing. If I've told you before, I've told you 100 times. Don't worry about, you know, painting first. Worry about dry brushing first. You know, if you can dry brush, that's most of the work done. There you can see just how the miniature works. Now look, this is eventually going to be a kind of like a green, gray, dark, you know, ocean-dwelling god creature that Cthulhu is. But, you know, we're going to start here. Okay, beautiful, perfect. Okay, so that, you know, this paint takes a while to dry. It's inexpensive. The thickness kind of works to your advantage for most miniatures. It works very well on resin, weirdly enough. Resin and metal, it works well. Just because it's like a thicker paint, it's not going to run off. It's going to adhere very well. Okay, so that's basically, you know, I mean, that's that. So that's, there you go. That's how that's going to look. And so let's get to work on this ocean part. I'm really excited about this. So this is a nice base. This will be useful for a variety of things. But you know, the idea for this particular diorama is the creature rising out of the water. You can do it a couple of ways though. So you can do it long ways like this. I mean, like, you know, side to side like this. Or I think what you could also do is do it long ways like this. And then I could probably get like a 6mm, 8mm scale, you know, steam paddle yacht, you know, the alert, and then maybe put it here. And then, you know, that would be like a different diorama I could make. If you know the mythology, if you've read the story, then you kind of know where I went with that. But okay, so let's start adding some color to the base now. Okay, so we still have our brush, you know, so we'll wipe off excess paint right there. And then we'll go dark to light. You know, let's see what this dark gray looks like. And again, the goal is not to have a blue sea for me for this diorama. It's to be like far out at sea. It's going to be sort of green, dark, deep water. Okay, so let's see what this color looks like. And it looks, wow, that's exploded out of there. Oof. Okay, it looks basically black. Okay, so I'm going to use a little bit of this actually and kind of cut it a little bit. Yeah, it's got a little gray to it. It's got a little gray. Maybe I'm sort of pulling some of that with this. So let's see what happens whenever we apply it to this. And it maybe it's lightening it up a little bit, you know. But painting, and especially painting miniatures, is about the layering of colors and washes, you know, to produce a variety of effects. And again, just like a regular miniature, this nice product from the company's Amera. It's a British company, like just about all good modeling companies. No, kidding. There's a lot of other good modeling companies out and hobby companies out there. It's gray. There's like a nice kind of a gray look to it. You see the difference? So look, that already looks like wet water, doesn't it? But see the difference, this is black, primer black, chaos black versus the dark gray. So, all right, so we're off to a reasonably good start here. Okay, perfect. So we've got our guy dry brushed, and we've got some decent looking color already. And then I'm going to, look at that, look what I'm doing. Painting is about this. Like, it's convenient, you know, that you have like specific colors, but you know, for canvas or panel painting, you got to create a lot of these colors on your own. And so, you know, don't be kind of nervous, I would say, to just kind of create some colors and see how it goes. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to just, and this is going to be a little bit like, I'm just going to create some like randomness in it. And then maybe in the end, that will show a little bit how, you know, maybe the water is kind of darker in places. I guess we kind of need it a little darker in the middle where our lovable friend is. Okay, so we got a little something going there, a little something going. If you have paint, you know, I'm a big fan, especially on bases, or, you know, if you got paint, use the paint. Dump it on there. We want thick, no, well, not too thick, but it's okay, you know, for a base that we want to be inky, deep water, you know, more paint better. I know that's like contrary to so much advice that people are given when it comes to miniature painting. You know, it's just thin your paints, thin your paints, thin your paints. Yeah, thin them a little bit, I guess. You don't really need to thin them, not nearly as much as you think you do. That's for sure, because the paints are already thinned. I mean, these are like super thin paints. How much thinner do you want them? You know, we want color density, we want saturation. Perfect. Look at that. Okay. All right. So, all right, we got that going. Of course, I forget water. Okay, give me uno segundo. I will be back. Let me fill that up with water to rinse out that brush, and then we're going to start on the old one. All right, I'll be right back.